Hey guys, I'm so excited to share the details of our campaign mode, which honestly as designers is our favorite part of ATW. This is very similar to a My Career mode that you would play on any of your favorite wrestling video games. It's a solo campaign and it tracks a wrestler's journey from being plucked from his timeline all the way to hopefully winning the all-time wrestling championship. Now this campaign is really exciting because it has some amazing storylines. I'm not gonna spoil it for you, but you're in for a treat. Number two, it's highly replayable. You can go on, hundreds of encounters, thousands of different journeys depending on the decisions that you've made along the way, and so many outcomes that can come out of the campaign. There are a lot of strategies you can take along the way as well, which will enhance your replayability and player experience. The game is also not that long. It takes between 4 to 8 hours to complete the entire campaign. And it's so easy to set up, as you guys can see, and so easy to bring back to the table that you don't have to spend 4 hours. You can easily spend half an hour, pack it up, and pack it back again. So we're really excited to share this with you. Over the next few videos, we're going to be going into some of the details, so stick with us. All right, so let's talk about the setup in the next 60 seconds. This is the campaign board, and this is, to the right, is the setup for your matches, but this is how you manage your campaign. This is a victory points tracker. It tracks how much points you've secured in the game. We'll talk about this in a future video. This is where you place your wrestler profile. Each wrestler has 4 attributes, and these impact your actions, the number of dice you roll when you're trying to take actions. Actions help you upgrade your skills, become a better babyface or heel, recover your health, or attack someone before the match. This is your campaign health, which is very different than your player health, because this is the injuries you rack up, the bumps you take that will impact how you start the match. This is your babyface and heel track, which basically is how well you've done as a babyface or a heel, and that gives you some great one-time abilities, any rivals you've created, and in chapter 2, when you go through the entire tournament, the victories and losses that you've racked up that allow you to qualify to the finals, hopefully. We're going to talk about each one of those in future videos. So how do you win the campaign mode? Well, there are 3 chapters, and if you complete them all successfully, you win the campaign. However, it's not that simple. At the end of completing the 3rd chapter, you're going to sum up your victory points, which you see on this board right here, this victory point tracker, and you're going to post it online if you please, and you can compare your score with your previous attempts and with other players. So think about it as an arcade where you're trying to get the best score possible. How do you earn victory points? Well, it's very simple. It's a wrestling game. The more you win matches and the higher the difficulty, the more victories that you win. There are also certain in-ring or in-match conditions that that are optional, bonus, and if you're able to secure them, you get extra victory points. During the campaign, you'll be told, for example, to play at easy or medium difficulty or hard difficulty. If you choose to play at a higher difficulty, you get even more points. Next video, we're going to be talking about some interesting things, so stick with us. So let's talk about your health during the campaign. Unlike a normal match, the starting health and your starting stamina and your starting cards are all impacted by how well you did in previous matches. Just like if you were a real wrestler. If you took too much damage in one match, that might affect you in the future. So let's assume you are playing the campaign as Kurt Angle. That's what it's been set up as. And let's assume your health, your match ends. Whether you're victorious or you lose, your health was at 3. That means that you've sustained enough damage that it's going to impact you in future matches. And that's represented by this bump token, which you will add to your starting health after the match. And that means that the next match you progress towards, unless you're able to remove this bump token, that means that instead of starting your health at 16, you'll start your health as 15 as Kurt Angle. If you get too many bump tokens on your starting health, you eventually draw an injury card and you place that on your starting health. So for example, here it's a back injury. And that says that in addition to any other bump tokens you may have, you're going to start the match with 1 less health and 3 less stamina. So here, your stamina would also be impacted. And this is really important because it's not just about winning a match. It's about making sure you don't sustain too much damage in a match that will enable you to win future matches. Now, how do you remove these nasty damage being dealt by injury cards and bump tokens? Well, it's very simple. During the campaign, you'll access things called actions, backstage actions. And one of the backstage actions you see here is a recovery action. And what that means is if you take Kurt Angle's profile card, you'll notice that he has a resilience of 2. That means you take 2 dice and you roll them. And in this case, you've had 1 success because the success is 4+, as you can see in the section right here. For each success, you can remove 1 bump token. If you had 2 successes, so if I rolled a 4 and a 5, I could actually remove an injury card. So this becomes an interesting strategy of, do I want to use my other backstage actions, which will upgrade my wrestler, and we'll talk about it in a second, or do I want to try to keep my health in check so that I don't rack up more and more injuries that will make it impossible for me to win future matches, or eventually lose significant bonus points just to remove these injuries off my board. So guys, the other super interesting thing about the campaign is you can upgrade your wrestler's skills. So you become a more powerful wrestler than you originally started out this journey on. And there are really 2 ways to do this. One way is to become a better face or a better heel. And this is the face and heel track that you see here. And that gives you access to special face and heel abilities that you can utilize during your matches, very similar to the wrestler abilities you see on your player board. And we'll get into that in future videos. The other way you can upgrade the skills of your wrestlers is through another action. And this action, as you can see here, is called the training action. You train your wrestler, and through it you can gain skill tokens. And through these skill tokens, you can actually end up acquiring new abilities. And the way this works is if you look at any wrestler will have a drive rating. Kurt Angle has a drive of 3. So you take 3 dice and you roll them. And in here, I only got 1 success. So I would get, imagine I had 2 successes, I would get a skill token of 2 and I would put it here. Once I have 8 skill tokens, as the campaign progresses, I can then purchase one of these abilities. And we'll talk about these abilities in future videos. All right, so we did talk about training. What do you get in return? So once you have enough skills tokens, once you have 8, you'll trade them in for one of these 7 abilities. There is a lethal ability, which allows you to add 1 damage to any attack card type of your choice. So if you remember the attack cards, for example, on Kurt Angle and every other wrestler, there's strikes, throws, grapples, and aerial attacks. You'll pick one of them, and you will say that for each one of those cards that you play successfully, instead of just doing the damage listed on the card, you'll do 1 more damage. So in this case, if you chose strike as your ability, instead of doing 2 damage, you'll actually do 3 damage through that ability. And that's really powerful. And obviously you're gonna have to pick which type of card you think you'd need the most. The other ability that you might get is Unbreakable. And that means that instead of having a starting health of 16, assuming you don't have any bump tokens or injuries, that goes up to 18, and you place that on your player board. The Iron Man gives you 2 additional stamina in your match, which is obviously very helpful. And the third or the fourth type of ability is a Rope-a-Dope. Basically, it's instead of getting compensated when being attacked by either gaining 1 stamina or 1 card, you get both. So you get 1 stamina and 1 card, which is extremely helpful if you've played the game. So that's why, it makes sense, and this is where the decisions come in. Do you want to focus on keeping your health full, or do you want to take a lot of damage and risk having a low starting health so you can upgrade your skills, and that'll make you even more powerful in the future. Next up, face and heal track and face and heal abilities. All right, the other way you can upgrade your skills apart from the amazing abilities you can gain is through the face and heal track. Now in chapter 1, every wrestler will have a choice to make, whether they want to become a baby face or whether they want to become a heel, a bad guy, right? And based on that choice, you're set off on either the baby face track, which is the one here in green, or the heel track in red. And that automatically gains you one ability card, a heel or babyface ability card, depending on the choice you've made, of level 1, which is not very powerful, but it's a little bit helpful during your matches. And you know, it's used exactly like your one-time abilities here. It's a one-time ability. So how do you actually progress further on the track? Because as you progress further, you get more and more powerful abilities that you can utilize during the game. And the way to do so is simple. The one way to do so, if you're a babyface or a heel, or the two ways, is one, the decisions you make in your campaign. If you're a good guy and you continue making good decisions, you progress forward, or heel for that matter. And the other element is doing a promo action. So that's the third backstage action that we're talking about today. And here you simply look at the charisma rating, which is 2 for Kurt Angle. You roll the dice. Let's say I've rolled a 5 and a 4. And since 4 is a success, I'm successful. That means that I can move 1 space on the babyface track, since I'm a babyface in this example. And it also allows me to gain 2 momentum in my next match. So I start the match with +2 momentum. If I was a heel, the same thing would happen, but I would progress on the heel track. If I was a heel, I have another way to progress on the heel track, and it's attacking someone backstage. And if I roll again a 5 and a 4, because Kurt Angle's brawling ability is 2, which means I get 2 dice to roll. And remember, all actions are a success of 4+, then I can not only do 2 damage to my opponent, 1 damage per success, but I would move forward on the heel track by 1 space. If I rolled a 1, I would actually sustain 1 damage in my next match. Now, why is this important? As I move ahead, as I mentioned, you gain more and more abilities. So once I get to, let's say, space number 4 on the heel track, I lose my level 1 card, but I gain a level 2 card, which is a lot more powerful. In this case, it's a low blow, which deals 2 damage. It helps me regain the initiative when I'm on the defense and gains me 1 momentum. So it's a powerful card. It's a one-time use. The one final thing I want to say is when you progress on the face track, it's actually more powerful than the heel track. And there are 2 reasons for this. Number 1, it's more difficult to be the good guy. You don't have a backstage attack action that you can use. That's locked for baby faces, right? You can never attack someone backstage because that's not the right thing to do. But if you do end up at level or space 5, not only do you gain a level 2 card, you gain a level 3 card. And here I printed out the level 3 card for you guys to see. Obviously, this is just a prototype, but it gives you an immense amount of abilities. It's a comeback, very similar to a Hulk Hogan comeback kind of style from a wrestling point of view. And it deals a lot of damage. It gains you health. It gains you momentum, stamina, all kinds of goodies. So this is the major tension in the game. Do I want to progress on the heel or face track and get these one-time abilities? Do I want to risk it and try as much as possible to gain as many skill tokens as possible and gain a permanent ability? Or do I want to manage my starting health before I start losing VP and making it very difficult to win a match because I'm starting my matches at 9 health or 10 health? And we'll talk about that in future videos. So we talked about how the campaign is divided into 3 major chapters. Chapter 1's the easiest. It's the one where you learn how to play solo mode. It's the one where you identify who you are and what you stand for as a wrestler. And each wrestler has a specific deck for Chapter 1. So in this case, Kurt Angle, he has his own Chapter 1 Kurt Angle cards that allow him to progress with his own unique storylines that other wrestlers don't have. And the way this campaign is played in Chapter 1 is very simple. You draw a card, There is some flavor text at the top. I don't want to play any spoilers. And then there's going to be a box at the bottom that tells you what to do for your next match. So in this case, one of the stuff it says is to proceed to a match against Mukundi Shumba, your next opponent. And then it tells you that after the match, you need to adjust your starting health on your campaign and your victory points tracker, and then move on and draw part 2. So I would keep this card until everything is done, and then I would draw part 2 card and I would read it, and so forth, right? So that's as easy as it gets, very straightforward. Now chapter 2 is a whole different ballgame. It becomes more difficult, and it's really centered about the ATW tournament. And unlike chapter 1, which is a more or less a linear storyline, it's a storyline that can go in very, very different ways. So one thing I want to start with before talking about how to play chapter 2 is this tournament tracker right here. This belt will allow you to place either a win or loss token in each one of your tournament matches. Think of this as an NJPW tournament and a round robin tournament. And after the 4th match, you'll rack up, or you'll count how many victories you have and how many losses you have, and that tells you which card to draw. So it really depends on your performance in the tournament, on how your storyline will progress. Now, let's talk about cards. Here in chapter 2, there are a lot of things that are going on. The way you play is, number 1, you take up to 2 actions, and you can pick any of the 4 actions that are available to you. Number 2 is you draw one of these encounter cards. And as you see, I've set up this campaign as a babyface campaign. So all the heal cards are in the box. Here it says babyface encounter card, and you draw it, and I don't want to spoil it for you, but it'll have, just like part 1, it'll have flavor text, it'll have instructions at the bottom. These instructions could throw you completely off the tournament. It could take you into a side storyline. It could provide you with bonuses. It could impact your match. There are a lot of surprises here. But one thing's for certain is that some encounter cards will start a feud with a rival based on the decisions you've taken. And the way that works is that encounter card will ask you to pull a scenario card. And there are different scenario cards numbered 1 to 3. There are 3 or 4 options per scenario. And you draw that, and it's the same thing. All campaign cards work in the same way. There's flavor text at the top, and then there is instructions there. And if a rival is created, just like Kurt Angle's profile card is here, you'll place the rival card in this section, and the whole campaign switches. Because at any point in time, your tournament hopes might be derailed completely, and you will progress through very unique storylines taken through the rival cards right here, and I'll ask you to draw some of them, and the special encounter cards, which you only pull from once instructed, and it's after a rival has reacted to the rivalry that has happened. So this is a very, very interesting chapter. It can go in literally in hundreds of different ways for every single wrestler. And if you tack on the 2 actions that you're taking every round and all the different match outcomes that are available, you're talking about thousands and thousands of different journeys that you can take. So that's really the most exciting part. And honestly, you can even play chapter 2 as a standalone chapter on its own with any of the 8 wrestlers that you're going to get in your box. All right, so what about chapter 3? Short answer is, I'm not going to ruin it. It's the most difficult chapter. To me, storyline-wise, it's the most interesting chapter. And it has a blend of chapter 1 and 2. It's not as linear as chapter 1, but it's not more of like a free roaming world that you see in chapter 2. It's a mixture of both. There are different outcomes, different paths that you can take, much more than chapter 1, but it's a nice mix. It has the big bad villain in it, and it has the most opportunity where you can earn victory points. So you really want to come off chapter 2 in a good state, starting health, abilities wise, etc., for you to be able to progress. Not going to ruin it any further.